Welcome, everyone. This is our inaugural Inspire by FVMA panel on well-being in veterinary medicine. And my name is Phil Richmond. I'm the chair of the FVMA's Well-Being Committee, and I get to wear a number of hats in the profession. Very excited tonight to have four expert panelists, but also people that are lifting up the profession in different ways. And what I'd like to do is just have us take a moment, and if it's okay, I'll just popcorn it, and I'll ask you to introduce yourself as I call your name. And to my left is Dr. Alex Miller.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Phil, for the opportunity to join you tonight. Hello to all the virtual folks out there, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Alex Miller, and I lead our veterinary team at Blue Buffalo. The reason, apart from a keen interest in veterinary well-being, which I'm sure we'll have a chance to really dive into, but a purpose or a part of the purpose of my presence on this call is that FVMA, as you may be aware, has launched a new well-being program called Inspire, and it is Blue Buffalo's absolute pleasure, honor, privilege. There's probably not a superlative enough word to insert there to be the proud sponsors of that. It is not an initiative that we entered into lightly. We truly believe that it is trailblazing in ways that well-being programs before it have really built towards this. So we'll dive a lot more into that. Lots of time tonight to discuss that.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you to Blue for what they do for the Inspire by FVMA program, as well as other programs in the U.S. for well-being. And next, the incomparable Dr. Virginia Corrigan.
I am blushing, Phil. Thank you so much for the really kind introduction. So I'm Virginia Corrigan. I'm a veterinarian and I work in veterinary education. And I'm an associate professor at the University of Tennessee College of Veterinary Medicine. Go Vols! I also graduated from veterinary school at UTCVM back in 2010. So life has really called me full circle, and I've come back to be a faculty member, which is very exciting. And my why is to support the people of veterinary medicine and to illuminate the next generation of veterinary professionals.
Oh, thank you, Virginia. And now next to my dear friend, Dr. Jamie Stahl, University of Florida graduate. Go Gators, 2013. I'm already doing your bio for you.
Yeah, Dr. Jamie Stahl. I graduated, I have to correct you, in 2012. Ages
So
me a
close.
little bit more. Thank you, close. Yeah, and so I have the privilege to be a veterinarian and also a therapist. And so what's so great about that is I work with veterinary students and veterinary professionals, and I have a little bit of a unique take on that because I know both sides of that. I work right now with at UF as a counselor with veterinary students primarily, and then I have my own private practice and work with veterinary professionals as well as veterinary staff.
And last but not least, our current FVMA president and a dear friend of mine, Dr. Thomas Hester, who is bringing a new energy, a new spirit to organize or continued different, I guess, if I can say, but just exciting to see him take the helm and he'll give a brief introduction.
Well, thank you, Phil. Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here. People on this panel really inspire me. And I definitely feel like the low man on the totem pole when it comes to the achievements and well-being in veterinary medicine. But I am a small animal practitioner, general practitioner out of Gilchrist County, Florida. I am a double Gator, but I did not go to vet school at Florida. I'm a Ross graduate. 2012, same year as Dr. Stahl. I never aspired to be president of the FVMA. I was asked to join the board, kind of not knowing 8 years ago, not knowing kind of what organized veterinary medicine was, to be honest with you. And then, within my first meeting of just trying to feeling things out, I just saw what great people are involved in organized vet medicine. And I met people like Phil who just dedicate their lives to helping other people. And it got me so invigorated and just made me be so honored to be a part of this profession. So it's things like these that we're doing right now that keeps me going and makes me proud to be a veterinarian. And I'm just honored to be here. So thank you.
Thank you all. And that's just it. As I wanted everybody to be able to, everybody that's listening and to be able to share is that, I mean, certainly Virginia, Virginia's, published, and the things Alex does, and, and Jamie at UF, and then, what Thomas does with the FVMA, but you may not have heard, the spirit and the passion behind 5 people, sitting here, and why we all went to vet school, but yet we all have a deep passion to help the profession and help those in it. And I'm here because veterinary professionals helped save my life, 16 years ago, 17 years ago now. And so it's just a way for me to pay back the gift that they gave me of giving me a second chance in life and in this profession. And on that, what I'd like to do is just maybe in we were going to say a sentence, but maybe just one word of how you would describe the current state of veterinary medical well-being, in the profession today. And we'll go around, and if we could, we'll go in the same order. So Alex, Virginia, Jamie, and Thomas.
I'm going to go with, I'm trying to find the best way to say this, and I'll probably think of it when our call is over, and I'll go, this is the best way to say it. But I'm going to go from buzzword to institutionalized. And I guess what I mean there is, I feel like we're at the point that we're coming to a common definition. We're getting beyond this place where it's new, and therefore exciting is the wrong word, but just this interest because we've uncovered something we didn't think we knew before. And as an industry, we're able to get our minds around it a little bit more, put some of these things into practice. We're getting some cohesion in terms of the different efforts that are being put into it. So I don't know that I think I definitely violated your rule, because I then went on for several sentences. But yeah, we're at a point where we're going from it just being kind of the topic du jour to really understanding the depth and breadth of what veterinary well-being truly is.
Thanks, Alex. Virginia?
I think I'm going to go with 2 of our favorite words, Phil. Realistic optimism.
Oh! That's what I was going to say. So great. Go ahead. And why? Why? Explain. And what is realistic optimism like in a...
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that we thought the same thing.
100%.
Well, I think optimism is a wonderful thing. We need it as a profession. We need it as individuals, teams, organizations, to keep us driving forward despite big challenges that we face. And we have to be realistic at the same time. So I think it helps to frame optimism in that way, so that we're not thinking of optimism as off in the clouds. Yeah. It's okay to be optimistic and realistic at the same time. And that's really how I frame my work and what keeps me going every day.
Love that. Thanks, Virginia. Jamie?
Yeah. I'm going to go with curiosity and discovery. And I say those 2 words because I feel like there's a way that we're becoming more curious about what's really happening in the veterinary profession. And then I say discovery in the sense of like, what can we do? Like, as we discover what's happening, like, what can we do about it? And then there's a real acknowledgement in what has happened that's caused some hurt and some harm. And then there's a repair that can happen with that. And then in the repair, it's like, then we can move the entire profession towards what we want it to be versus what it is now.
Love that. Thomas?
Yeah, so I would say two words, I guess. If I have to put it down to that, which is difficult, is work in progress. Since I graduated, I'm grateful for the shift that has happened. It felt like in the beginning, we were kind of stuck in the mud, as Dr. Stahl said, and getting those wheels churning and getting our profession and everyone involved in our profession more on board of acknowledging this as a problem and starting to move forward with efforts that were going to help people. It was hard to get those wheels turning. It feels like we finally got some grease on there. They're starting to turn. They're moving a little bit faster. We're seeing a future where we can get to where we can really make some change. Not that we're not making change already, but we have a long way to go, and it's a process, but it's moving faster than it ever has before, and I think that's a great sign for our future of our profession.
Yeah, love that. And to piggyback on what Virginia had mentioned, realistic optimism, or what I like is grounded hope. Is that, and I love, so Adam Grant wrote something, and there's other ways of saying this, but the antidote to fear is grounded hope. And so that is what I think we can get into when we look at some of the challenges, and we'll get into what some of those may be, but it can be fearful sometimes with the issue with suicide or the issue with mental illness, and yet we're being realistic about what those things are and having hope for the future. And thinking 15 years ago, would we have had a panel of 5 veterinarians working a significant part of their life to work towards the well-being of the profession? And there were people doing this 15 years ago, but to have all of us get together like this, it's beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Virginia. You just wrote that paper. It's published in Frontiers in Veterinary Science. What works? What's working in organizational settings? And I think the paper you wrote is amazing, and I think it is comparable to what we can see in a veterinary workplace, in a clinical veterinary workplace as well. But what strategies and initiatives do you see that have really made a difference?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I think that based on the literature, one of the most effective shifts that we're seeing is the move from individual level interventions to more systemic approaches. I think what we're finding is that these individual level interventions, while they're great, they're not enough. And collective well-being for us as a profession and us in our teams and organizations really requires more structural support and a recognition of how the workplace, and in my situation, educational environments, can really shape our daily experiences.
100%. Awesome. Thank you, Virginia. Thomas, since you've been in the FVMA or your experience in organized veterinary medicine, how has local, state level organized veterinary medicine evolved as far as support for member well-being?
Oh, I mean, there's been such a huge evolution in just a short period of time. Just starting off when I graduated vet school, it was just a pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, everywhere in our field. Well, not everywhere, but the majority of our field, it was, kind of suck it up, to be honest with you. In the 8 years I've been on the FVMA executive board, when I started, it was like was mentioned previously, it was these little small discussions, oh, there's something happening, there's something needs to be done, how do we do it? And then, a little bit later, it ended up with your help, Phil. We instituted a program, our membership assistance program. It was a program that offered free support to all of our members. Piggybacking onto that, now, evolving even more, we've approved the Inspire program now, which which offers free support to everyone in our profession, whether they're a member or not. And that's not just veterinarians, that's support staff, that's anybody involved in our profession, whether you're a member or not, now has access, to help. I mean, that 8 years, that's a huge evolution. And, and I've seen that through many other state associations too. We also have well-being tracks at every one of our conferences, and so do the other state associations. And I mean, the AVMA has done remarkable efforts at making this aware, and instituting programs that are offered to all veterinarians throughout the United States. So, I mean, what a huge evolution in just a short period of time. So I think that's why I feel so optimistic about, where we're headed.
Alex, you've been an industry vet for a long time, working to support veterinarians in practice, supporting your clients, supporting your hospitals. What's been the change in the things that you've seen in industry, and how the veterinary industry itself has been responding to well-being concerns? And what are some of the things that you've seen that have really made an impact?
Yeah, I mean, huge evolution. Not unlike what Thomas was just talking about, how what well-being looks like at the practice level has really evolved, even in just 8 short years. The same goes with industry. And so industry veterinary medicine is an interesting, sometimes we're sort of thought of as the black sheep of the vet family. They don't teach you much in vet school about what it's like to be, in the exciting world of veterinary pharmaceuticals or what have you. But when you get industry veterinarians in a room, we are first and foremost veterinarians. We took the same oath that every other veterinarian did, and we interact in the same circles as practicing veterinarians. And so our empathy or our sympathy, whether it's something we're directly experiencing or just seeing what's happening with our friends and colleagues, is identical to what a clinical veterinarian would experience. I think the difference is that we work for organizations which are understandably results driven and results oriented. And I don't think it's any, truth bomb or mic drop moment here to say that the companies that employ industry veterinarians are profit oriented businesses. And that's not to fault them, but traditionally the activities are justified by a return on that investment. And so in the mid 2000 and teens, 2015, 2016, when I think it was the CDC study that came out that really highlighted sort of the worst of the worst, if you will, right? The forever answer of the forever response in terms of veterinary suicide rates. I don't think that industry responded saying we have no role in what's going on here, but it was ambiguity. Like, whose role is this? Do we have anything to do with this? I thought we made food. I thought we made heartworm prevention. Why us? And so I think the journey on the industry side of things has really been to discover what it truly means to be synergistic and to be more than the sum of our parts. At worst, I think you could have academia and general practice and industry just kind of going about their own interests, and then we overlap ever so slightly. I think in a best case scenario, true veterinary well-being is achieved when we all align on what great looks like, and then we work together to get there. Because I really think even with commercial interests, in the minds of industry or academic prowess and university level or general practice, and obviously the final outcome is the patient health, we can achieve a vibrant industry where everyone is excited to come to work every day as part of that. And so my favorite part of being an industry vet in the well-being space is how I get to direct some of the top-down level approaches, some of which we touched on, these kind of sweeping institutional level type programs that we're trying to put into place, but also been involved at the absolute grassroots level, where I've given presentations to clinics of 2, 3, 4 people. And it's almost a workshop level, and you're really getting hands-on to get that feeling like we're part of something bigger. And so, that's what I really see is an evolution of industry understanding that it has a crucial role to play. And if we want to go far, we go together.
Jamie, what interventions are you seeing that are really most helpful? Because I know you work a lot with students, but you also work with, with veterinarians in practice, and then you're also shameless plug, you're also one of our wonderful mental health professionals for the Inspire program. So now working with mental health veterinary professionals all across the state. What are some of the things that you're seeing that seems to help? And I know that's kind of a broad brush question, but what are you seeing that's helping?
So what I feel is helping, and myself included in that, is just thinking back to when I graduated and then worked and then to now as well. What I feel is helping the most is everyone acknowledging that there's something about what's going on in the veterinary profession that wasn't working, and that we're having mental health conversations, and that people aren't feeling as alone in what they're experiencing, and that there's a coming together, and that organizations are popping up that are acknowledging, like, hey, there's some things about what's going on right now that aren't so great, and let's start doing something about that, and let's find a way, and you and Virginia, you writing a paper to publish, to put out there about, we need, it's not just one-on-one individuals, it's like we need the big groups of folks to come together too, and it's a top down and a bottom up approach. So it's pretty much like the biggest sense is that there's an acknowledgement, and that there's conversations, and that there's a overall awareness, and also is that there's a stigma, and I know that word is a little overused, but it's like the stigma of mental health. It's like, because we're having these conversations, it's people are more willing to ask for help, and people are also willing to offer help. And so there's more folks that are out there that are like, yeah, because I've received support from so and so, or I've done this thing, then here's this thing that has helped me, let me help you with that. And people are getting curious about their own experiences, and then are sharing what's working for them. And that question that you just asked, you're like, what helps? It's like, I'm sharing with you that other people are meeting with therapists, or going to group therapies, or doing all these things and having conversations. And it's like, well, let me get in on that. Like, what's going on? What's working for you? And having that, collaboration is what I think is really helping.
On that, I want to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to put this question to everybody. And I'm going to start with Virginia, because this is Virginia's area of expertise. But what are some of the biggest systemic barriers to sustainable well-being in the profession and in veterinary education?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I think that one of the biggest barriers that we have to sustainable well-being in veterinary medicine in general is that we tend to overemphasize individual well-being without matching it to organizational and systemic change, which I think we've definitely touched on a lot already, but I don't think it can be underemphasized. So one of the things that I think I used to hear a lot, and I think that this narrative is changing, which I think is one of the reasons why I'm realistically optimistic, is that we used to say, just be more resilient. We used to tell the students that too, just handle hard better, be more resilient, without really addressing what those root causes of poor mental health or poor well-being or burnout, like more of these systemic level issues. So I think that the sustainable well-being that we really are all wanting requires more than individual coping strategies, even though they are very, very important, and I utilize them daily. We really need this structural change to prioritize healthy work environments, supportive and positive leadership, and policies, et cetera, that will really foster collective well-being across the profession.
Jamie, what about you? What do you see systemically, in the profession?
I mean, I could just piggyback off of what Virginia said, and I'm really speaking to when I'm noticing at UF at the veterinary college, is that until we started doing the well-being curriculum and making schedule changes and putting in well-being lunches and scheduling wellness afternoons off, and having more staff, faculty having more conversations at that level, and made it more of a collective understanding that, hey, this isn't just the kids that, just the students, I say kids, but just the students that are suffering here. It's also faculty, staff, like it's all across the board. And so to just focus on the individual students or the individual person, it actually creates a level of shame when you're like, oh, work harder, or you should do better at this, or it's taken some of the shame off, is to start pointing towards that there's something bigger at work here, and we could even extend that out to above veterinary medicine. I mean, we're one profession in a country of a lot of different ones also, so there's a governing body over us too, and so it could extend out past that even. But I would, just completely agree with what Virginia said. It's like not until we actually start to address the structural changes did we really see things. And individual. So I work mostly with individuals. It's like naming that there's these things in the environment that are at play. That were actually causing some of the hurts was able to relieve a lot of the suffering and the shame that was there, like, oh, I should do better, or what's wrong with me about this, that, and whatever, and should be able to handle this. And so just peeling back the shame, which is one of, in my opinion, the hardest human emotions to experience. So this is my fault that I'm suffering. Being able to just have it be at the level of suffering. It's like we can just see what's there and address it at that level. And then also the bigger structure as well.
Thanks, Jamie. Thomas, so in the seat, not so much the seat as FVMA president, but as a full-time practicing veterinarian, what are some of the things that you see as systemic issues in practice, in day-to-day practice? What are some of the things that you see that come up for veterinarians and support staff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same across, whether it be organized veterinary medicine or in clinic practice. Is we've kind of touched on it a little bit. It's the bridging the generational divide. I mean, every generation is going to have different opinions on how we should practice and what's important to us. And I feel kind of at, the age that I am right now, kind of being I guess they call it the elder millennial, I have a lot in common and relate a lot to the older generations, and I relate a lot to the younger generations. So, kind of being asked to, when my time came up on the board and people were, they were coming to me and saying, we'd like for you to be the next president. And I kind of looked at all the past presidents and said, man, am I the right person for this? But I kind of feel this, what I've learned in being organized vet med or in practice is, being able to kind of bridge that gap with that kind of, knowledge from both sides. I feel like hopefully I've been able to do that. And I think, I've challenged a lot of people in my age group to kind of tackle that issue, not just with well-being, but with about many issues of bridging that gap. It's a pretty short window, so we have to do as much as we can. But just creating that kind of that culture in our profession to where it's an open communication between all generations, so we can have people in leadership or whatever that can understand both sides and kind of bring everyone together and kind of come up with a plan that's going to work for everyone. It's going to help everyone.
Thanks, Thomas. Alex, from your seat as in industry, so what do you see? Well, what do you see in just the workplaces that you've been in general? We're human beings first before we were trained to be veterinarians. What are some of the systemic barriers you see to systemic well-being in any workplace? And then what were some of the things that you were seeing when you were out in the field working with veterinarians?
Yeah, the word came up earlier, and with all due respect, Jamie, I think the word stigma is absolutely, maybe it is overused, but I do think that it's still very, very pervasive. out there. And, certainly that can feel different depending on what circles you're in. But when when I deliver well-being content at the practice level, or I'm working with individual practitioners who may walk by knowing about our various sponsorships or different sort of philanthropic efforts that we've made in the well-being space. I don't get as much antagonism as I think I used to, but I do think that anytime there's sort of a disagreeing element for a good cause, it can come from a vocal minority. And a lot of times that pessimistic, or that, if there's realistic optimism, maybe this would be unrealistic pessimism, I don't know. But it's a belief that nothing is wrong. It's kind of maybe that's toxic positivity. I don't know exactly what term you would apply to that, but it's everything's fine, or things used to be fine. Why can't we go back to the way it used to be? But the challenge with that kind of thinking, even if it is from a vocal minority, is it can absolutely shut the door to somebody asking for help and coming forward. And that vulnerability and the shame that can come from that hurts. I think that I learned this from you actually, Phil, but that feeling can be as painful as a genuine physical trauma. And that is something that the body will avoid if at all possible. And so I do think that there's still a narrative out there, Thomas, you touched on this as well, that the younger generation or a certain mindset has emerged, and we just need to toughen up. We need to, bite down and bear it. And that is not thriving. At most, that's going to get you to survive, a tough profession, a tough career. But in terms of reconnecting with those moments that fill your bucket and truly deliver the kind of rewarding career that we all deserve, that's not going to come from bottling it up. So I think that's still out there. I think that with persistence and variety of efforts, we are overcoming that more and more. But I still think it's a hurdle that we face.
Thanks, Alex. So looking ahead, what if we could all just wave a wand and change one thing tomorrow to improve well-being in the profession? What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Virginia and Jamie answer that one. And then to Alex and Thomas, I'm going to ask you to lean into your roles as leaders in an industry and organized veterinary medicine. Say what roles do leadership and advocacy play in shaping the direction that we're going in?
If I could wave a magic wand, I would change the veterinary and veterinary technician's oath tomorrow. If you've read them recently, you might notice that there is absolutely nothing in either about caring for our own well-being or the well-being of others. And the modern physician's oath pledge now says, I will attend to my own health, well-being, and abilities in order to provide care of the highest standard. So if I had a magic wand, I would change our oaths to state something very similar, so that from the very beginning, it is normalized that we will care for our well-being. And by doing so, we will be functioning better. We'll be providing better care for our patients and better able to really pursue this calling that we've all come to this profession with. So that's what I would do.
Wonderful. Jamie?
Wow, Virginia, that was beautiful. Thank you. So, and this is speaking from myself as well. I feel like all of us were taught to override our systems, like our bodies and the way that it speaks to us constantly. And we are constantly, in our minds and going pretty quickly and in the state of we need to be doing something. And there's a real miss for rest and listening to the deep undercurrent of our body that is constantly trying to get our attention. And so my wish would be for us to slow down and learn the innate wisdom that's in all of us, and to touch into the feeling of what it means to be a human, to be a human being instead of a human doing. And to not judge our experience, whatever that may be, when we do that. And so to not judge ourselves, to not judge each other. And that would be my wish.
Wow, it's beautiful. Just gonna sit with that for a second before I share mine, which is going to be of course in the same vein as both what you and Virginia shared. And it's funny because as I sit here, I'm like, oh, I might have, like as the student, like I finally got a little inkling. Virginia will know Dr. Chris Peterson, who's one of the founders of modern positive psychology. And I heard this at the very beginning, that Chris Peterson described the study of positive psychology, or he could describe it in 3 words: other people matter. And in much as I have dove into individual resilience, team level, psychological safety, psychological health and safety, looking at organizational, issues, if it was creating a sense of mattering and belonging in an organization, like if I could tap into that empathy for other human beings, and that's hard sometimes, given the climate, given where we're at, is to give someone else. I wouldn't even say, we don't always have to assume good intent, but just make the charitable assumption, like honor that I may not know everything about what that person's walk is or whatever it is, and just listen. And that has been, I really have come to have a different understanding of what Dr. Peterson said when he said other people matter. And so if that would be, if I could do that one, that would be my Patronus, would be Chris Peterson. Just like having everybody do that. All right. So Thomas and Alex, we were gonna talk about what roles do leadership and advocacy in organized veterinary medicine and industry play. Thomas and then Alex.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to let you get away with me not answering that great question, but I'll make it fast about the magic.
All right.
But bouncing off of what you guys said, if I had a magic wand, it would be to, instill a kindness in everyone, but not the kind of kindness that you think of. It's a kindness for yourself. The way that we judge ourselves and the way that we talk to ourselves in our mind, we would never treat anyone else that way. And I suffer from that more than, or just as much or more than anyone. So I think we can make, great strides if we could just do that one thing with that wand. But advocacy, I want to talk about advocacy because this is a huge passion of mine. But I'll try to keep it pertaining to wellness, of course. You don't think that, advocacy and wellness in the veterinary profession, where does that connect? But I want to give you an example. Just a couple of years ago, maybe 2, a bill came through in our state that had huge momentum behind it. It had great intentions. It was an animal wellness bill, but that bill basically stated that if one of your employees, one of your clients, or a non-client came into your hospital and said, I think my neighbor's abusing his dog, it would be your legal responsibility as a veterinarian to contact that person, tell them that they had to bring on their own dime that pet into your hospital for an exam and an interrogation about whether or not, and you would have to determine whether animal cruelty was occurring before you reported it to the officials. We luckily shot that down through the FVMA legislative committee, shot that down. But, veterinarians are not trained to be police officers. We're not trained to be animal control officers. So I can only imagine, the mental strain, and not only the mental strain, but, the physical danger that would have put veterinarians and veterinary staff in. So I think advocacy is a major factor in, protecting the well-being and promoting the well-being of veterinarians and veterinary support staff. And there are many other examples.
Yeah, so tough acts to follow. I mean, terrific answers, and Virginia and Jamie, thank you for the truly inspiring answers. And as we think about, what it means to be just one person in this world, as all our daily interactions and our paths cross, and it can be very difficult to get out of our own mind. I have this sort of understanding of the world where we all want to be the main actors, the main characters in a story that we're in, and everyone else is a supporting character, or perhaps even just an extra. And it's that kind of mindset that I think can lead us down a path where it's all about us. And I think, Phil, to your point, this other people matter. Everybody is running parallel stories in which they're the main character of their lives. And you think about it, it's so complex and yet such a beautiful idea that we're all just crisscrossing in each other's stories. And what an opportunity to be inquisitive and understand those stories and get outside of our own movies once in a while. So sorry, I too, like Thomas, wanted a chance to wax poetic in an answer in a question you didn't answer or ask us, Phil. But as far as advocacy is concerned, I think that can mean a lot of things, and certainly there needs to be greater awareness of the challenges and opportunities that veterinary medicine faces very broadly amongst different constituencies. One group that we haven't had a huge chance to address is the public at large. The veterinarians used to rate as one of the highest respected professions in the world. And it made our jobs, I think, a little easier. We never, I think, abused that the way that, in human medicine, take two of these and call me in the morning, no questions were asked. We always were thankful as veterinarians that we had that respect from the public. But I think the fact that we're falling further down that list suggests that there's a disconnect somewhere. And yet we're putting our hearts into it more than ever before. So I think bringing awareness to the public around the challenges that veterinarians are facing. I don't know what perfect looks like there, because I've seen ad campaigns, I've seen attempts to kind of do a data dump on the public, and I don't know what the best way through is. But I do think it's incredibly important to continue to find that common thread forward. If you bring the public into it, we're all in it for the human animal bond. It is the most beautiful, sacred thing out there, and perhaps the most universal thing across cultures and across mindsets. In a time that we could all use a little more, binding forces. And so I think if we can focus on how we're all in it for the right reasons, and we may not enjoy owning the cause of the so-called problems, but if we don't step up to the plate, then we will certainly own the impact of a lack of solution to those problems. And so I just thinking about things that way enables that dialogue and helps to build kind of that mutual trust that's so necessary to get where we need to be.
Love that. And I think that is a great place for us to bring this all together. And our parting comments, our parting words is what gives you hope? We started talking about hope, but what specifically gives you hope in veterinary medicine right now? Virginia?
So I'm a huge fan of the arts and humanities as an intervention, specifically in education. And I personally, I love poetry. So Rumi said, this is one of my favorite quotes. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. So what gives me hope is when we take the time and give ourselves the space to make the changes that help us to show up in ways that we can really make a better impact for the people around us. And you're absolutely right. Other people matter. And I can't help others unless I'm able to really care for myself first, be kind to myself, as Thomas mentioned, be compassionate with myself, and then I can show up in ways that can really make a positive impact. That gives me hope.
Jamie?
So I'll speak from personal experience. It's like I used to be, and still am, and sometimes so incredibly critical of myself. I used to be and had suicidal thoughts at one point in time. I had days where I didn't want to go to work. I have had lots of hard conversations. I've had people who didn't listen to me. I've had all kinds of things. And I'm now sitting in a room with folks who are having conversations about how can we care for each other? How can we come together? What can we do differently? And I've met lots of folks that have helped me see things in a different way. And I've learned things about myself and ways to do things in a different way. And I'm kinder, I'm more compassionate, I'm gentler, I'm softer. I show up in the world in places that I normally wouldn't be. I'm scared right now to be on this call, and I'm here anyways. And so I feel like that's what gives me hope, is like I'm showing up, and I imagine if I'm going to do that, then other people can too. So that's what I feel like now. Thank you.
Thomas?
Yes, I mean, what gives me hope? I mean, this discussion that we just had, being in this position, I've got to meet hundreds, if not thousands of people who have full-time jobs, but volunteer countless hours to help the veterinary community, I mean, it's inspiring, and it makes me hopeful. I mean, seeing that we as a profession care about each other as much as we care about our patients, I mean, that just shows me that our profession will always thrive. We have the best people in the world.
Well, you stole mine, Thomas, so thank you. One of the perils of going last, I suppose. No, I think this call right here, things like this and getting together, or meeting of the minds, and understanding that there's so many amazing individuals. It inspires me and it gives me hope, not just because I think it shows that with the right effort directed in the right place, we really will restore and even exceed, the profession's glory. That moment when everyone, for maybe it was the first time you successfully did a jug stick, or you got handed your white coat, or, that moment when you said, wow, here I am. Like, this might be the greatest moment of my life. We all deserve to be reminded of how excited and joyful we were to be part of this profession. For me, when I meet with great folks in the well-being space who are doing just that and giving up, to your point, Thomas, countless hours of their work week, and they're doing it for free, in order to feel like they're doing the right thing, and because it's a call, because we have that empathetic gene in us as veterinarians, it's beautiful. And so, even more than hope about the future of veterinary medicine, it's kind of hope about humanity, that we can see challenges and we can see opportunities for improvement. And then, instead of sitting at a dinner table and kind of griping about it and then going back to our day jobs, we roll up our sleeves and actually get the work done. And it's inspiring.
I just want to close with saying, just thinking of all five of us sitting in our graduation ceremony, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and thinking what was in store for all of us. And probably if, seasoned us went and talked to, newly graduated us and said, you'll be working really heavily in well-being, or you'll be doing this, or you'll be doing that. Now, like, I'm going to be a surgeon, or I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to be, walking down this path. And it's just the beauty that this is happening right now. And to Thomas's point, there are thousands of veterinarians, and then expanding that to veterinary professionals that are just as passionate as we are, doing the hard work day after day to lift this profession up, and that we do care about one another. And that's what gives me hope. And I just want to thank all of you for being here. As we close, I'm just going to share one thing. in the screen here. So this is our Inspire by FVMA program. One of the pillars is access to veterinary informed mental health professionals. Dr. Jamie Stahl happens to be one of them. But our thought is that that's a decrease to a barrier, is that somebody who knows what it's like to be in a veterinary hospital, somebody who knows what we go through, and it just becomes a little easier to have those conversations. And so you get three free if you're a veterinary professional in the state of Florida, regardless of FVMA membership. Sponsored, underwritten by Blue. Thank you very much, Alex. That we're here to be able to support veterinary professionals in the state of Florida. And I just want to again thank all four of you for the work that you do, and just very, very grateful to be with you tonight.